Should I feel guilty for not including my stepson on the family vacation? Kevin, my stepson, and I have been acquainted for a full 18 years now. He's 30 years old, and I had no qualms about adopting him. He's always felt like my own son, just like my two biological sons. But after he turned 18, his behavior started to shift. He continually expected me to do favors for him, and he'd inform me that I was one misstep away from him cutting me off if I didn't comply with all of his demands. Even though I assisted him with countless things, now that he's an adult, has a family of his own, and lives quite a distance from us, we'd reached a more respectful relationship and didn't hear that ultimatum anymore. My family wanted to go to a beach resort on vacation. Prior to our departure, Kevin got in touch, expressing his desire to join the family, but he couldn't afford to cover the costs for his family. I explained that everyone was expected to handle their own expenses, not just him. He mentioned his mother would pay for him. His mother declared she wouldn't pay, yet she wanted me to subtly persuade him to use his own money to pay for his family's trip. I told him what she said, and then he requested that I cover the expenses, promising that he or his mother would reimburse me at a later date. My kids are saying that I'm making them pay while covering Kevin's costs, and I just emailed him to give him my final answer, that he can either pay or not come. He didn't get back to me at all. We went on the vacation, and he rang me up, sounding extremely upset. I mentioned that I thought I gave him plenty of time to sort things out, but he insisted I hadn't given him any choices and wouldn't help out financially, despite promising to reimburse me or have his mom cover it. I clarified why I couldn't pay for his family, explaining the favoritism and resulting chaos. He stated it felt like I was getting back at him for how he'd treated me a long time ago, but I responded that I treat all the children equally, avoiding any kind of preferential treatment. Thus, I refused to pay for him and the other kids. He griped that I didn't consider him part of the family, and that he and his wife were terribly upset about not being included, hinting he might disown me as a result. But I calmly told him to go fly a kite. I didn't care anymore if he disowned me. He's a grown man, capable of making his own decisions, and as an adult, he has to deal with the outcomes of those choices. It's been a week since he last spoke to me. His mother says I should have used this situation to improve my relationship with Kevin, but instead I've caused a setback, returning things to how they were years ago, suggesting I should have paid for his family's trip, since I could afford it, and just kept it secret from my other kids. I told her what kind of message that would send to my other children, who are 21 and 24 but had to pay for themselves. I just know Kevin would have been bragging about going on the trip for free. I guess she's advising that I should phone and say I'm sorry to try and fix things with her, mainly because this whole problem is my fault. I yelled at her, asking what kind of messed up family this even is, basically purchasing his affection and approval for who knows how long. I terminated the phone call right then and there, but I keep hearing that I shouldn't be shocked if Kevin stops talking to me or something even worse happens. Am I really the bad guy here? Time for a look at what people have been saying. Nope, not the bad guy. However, your wife and stepson are quite a pair, it seems. I don't think I have to explain why Kevin is the bad guy in this situation. It's really pretty clear. Your wife, though, is just as bad, it appears. She didn't just want you to refuse him money, she then claimed you were incorrect and should have just given it to him. It's like she wanted it both ways. It seems to me that Opai's wife indulged her stepson before she married him and continued to let him get away with things until he became a spoiled adult. Yeah, two words that really shouldn't go together, spoiled and adult. You're not the bad guy, but Kevin is. He's an adult and you're not responsible for him, or his family for that matter. If he decides to cut you out of his life, it's not really a huge loss for you. True. I believe maybe I erred by not presenting him with additional ways to get here and supporting him in the process. Yet this whole vacation would have been a disaster if my boys had known I covered Kevin's expenses. Kevin, at age 30, already has a wife and kids. He should be capable of finding alternative solutions that didn't require my financial assistance. Even his mom wasn't going to fund his trip, and they both came to me. Why isn't he upset with his mom for failing to provide him with other solutions? That's because I'm a convenient person to place the blame on, and I really need to understand that. He will sever communication with me until he needs something. I won't be entirely free of him. I'm wondering, is his threat of no contact really a threat or a blessing at this stage? Also, seriously consider your marriage. Seriously, Hall said in no uncertain terms, I'm not going to pay. Then she got angry that their dad wouldn't pay, And then she made him relay this message on her behalf to her son. Really? You're completely right. That would have genuinely enraged my two sons. The favoritism would have been so obvious. It appears as though Kevin is used to special treatment, so being treated equally likely feels depressing or unfair. Frankly, he's an adult. If he really wanted a vacation, he could have saved his money. He chose his course of action, and he and his mom can now deal with the consequences. Moving on. Do I have a right to be upset with Hall for saying my 30-year-old stepsister is foolish for believing my sister, who's 23, would ever be interested in a romantic relationship with her? After my mother passed away, my father married another woman who already had a daughter. Frankly, my brothers and sisters and I weren't thrilled about our dad getting married again, but it was ultimately his choice, so we opted to stay out of the situation. Our stepmother is not that terrible. While we aren't super close, there's no animosity between us. However, her daughter, Sue, is an absolute pain. She's a coddled and arrogant person who, for some reason, fixates on my sister, Aurelia. Aurelia gets angry quickly and typically doesn't tolerate any nonsense, so she tries her best to steer clear of Sue because Sue's behavior pushes her to the brink of losing her cool. I told Sue several times that she needed to stop, that I cannot stand people who act like they're entitled. But she would completely disregard anything I said and just dismiss it, and that really bothered me. It wouldn't bother me if she didn't want to have a friendship with us. The bare minimum is that she could at least be courteous. There were so many times when Sue would make Aurelia feel awful. She'd call her names like Banshee and Grinch, and even told her she looked like she had risen from the dead. The whole situation really stung, and it brought up a lot of anxieties for Aurelia, even though I constantly assured her that none of it was accurate. Sue was a difficult kid, and you practically had to exhaust yourself just to get her to pay attention, so, of course, punishment wasn't effective, and they eventually stopped trying. But now Aurelia's doing wonderfully. She relocated to Australia and is living with her significant other. My siblings and I speak to her every day. We're incredibly close. Sue quit college and is living with a roommate. My stepmother and father stopped talking to her because of some personal problems that I won't be discussing here. Recently, Sue has tried to contact Aurelia, even though Aurelia has made it crystal clear that Sue is completely out of her life, and their so-called connection was already ruined a while back. Sue wasn't accepting rejection, and she came to me, seeking guidance because, apparently, she doesn't understand how she hurt Aurelia so badly. I responded by saying that she had no sense of her own actions, and that I felt almost no pity for her. She was foolish to imagine that Aurelia would ever want to have anything to do with her. I told her she created her own situation, and she needed to deal with the consequences. You know how it goes, you get what you deserve in the end, correct? She began to sob and ended the call, then wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how she was always viewed as the problem child, while as usual, Aurelia would always be the favored one. Honestly, I am feeling like the bad guy. To be honest, I may have been a little intense, possibly gone too far, but I can't decide. Am I the jerk in this scenario? Definitely not the jerk. I have no idea what she anticipated, but you were open and truthful with her instead of deceiving her. The simple fact that you're step-siblings doesn't mean you must have a connection. Absolutely not the jerk. It seems like she finally got the reality check she needed and didn't react well. Nope, not the bad guy. Sue tormented and picked on Aurelia for years and didn't show even an ounce of remorse. Aurelia cut her off entirely, which is the obvious outcome, really. Sue tries to reconnect with Aurelia and is shocked that Aurelia won't respond. As the absolute pain in the neck that she always was, Sue won't accept it, doesn't understand it, and wouldn't dream of asking me for my thoughts. I pointed out the truth of her actions to Sue and that Aurelia wouldn't ever have a relationship with her. Sue isn't happy about that. Oh well. That's what she brought upon herself. You should unfriend Sue on Facebook and stop talking to her completely. She's still a negative influence. Not the a-hole, you just expressed the facts of the situation to her. It might have come across a little rough, but she's clearly never listened before. It's created this problem. It's possible, though, that your stepsister is currently going through a lot, and she might feel like she's being cast aside unjustly. Perhaps you ought to talk to her family and ask to have a conversation with her, where you can share everything she's done and what she needs to address. Of course, I wouldn't do it all at once and probably not right now. Give her time to settle down, and that's the only thing I can think of for advice. I truly feel bad about what you're going through. I really hope things get better for you soon. I've tried quite a few times to encourage her to open up to us. Heck, Oralia even proposed she try therapy. Nevertheless, she wouldn't. I believe the final thing that pushed her over the edge was when Sue had a huge argument with Oralia where she said, "You're nothing, do you understand? You're a worthless piece of crap that serves no purpose whatsoever to any of us." That argument led to Sue being grounded for a month, and Oralia just broke down and was in tears. She stayed in her room for the rest of the evening, and I'd never been so worried about her. The following story is called, "Am I in the wrong for declining to be the godfather to my friend's baby after they presented me with a legally binding contract with certain conditions?" Briefly put, my wife is from another country, and we made friends with a couple where the husband's wife is from the same country. We've been the best of friends for nearly a decade and done so many things together, without a doubt the best of friends. My friend's husband, he has no family who's still living or in contact with him, and his wife, she really only has him for family since they're here in America. So, she's expecting a baby girl, and let's call her Jane for the sake of this discussion. My friend's husband asked me if I would be Jane's godfather. For context, they are Catholic. I was truly honored. My friend was really excited, and the day after he brought over an envelope with some documents inside. Once he left, I opened it, and it was a legal agreement that I was supposed to sign in order to be the godfather. Honestly, I felt it was a bit much, but I decided to read it anyway. It listed lots of responsibilities I'd have as a godfather, like attending every Catholic ceremony Jane participates in, like baptism, confession, confirmation, and stuff like that, which I understand are regular occurrences in a Catholic child's upbringing. That's not so bad. Then things got a little crazy. I would have to think about actually converting to Catholicism. I must also give a gift of at least $500 for each of those events. And on her birthday or at Christmas, the gifts have to be strictly cash and over $250. Oh, it just kept getting crazier. They also anticipate I'll save a minimum of $25,000 during Jane's 18 years and hold it for Jane's future college education. Her parents will take care of the rest. Really? The list continued, also including things like I must be prepared to drop any plans I have if they need me to look after Jane or if they're away on holiday. It seems Jane is unable to participate. Most of the other items listed were trivial or inconsequential, like setting aside time to be with her weekly. I contacted my friend, explaining it wasn't anything personal, but there was no way I would agree to the terms. He got upset, claiming I'm their only family and should be grateful and pleased to be asked. I explained that I was honored, but the stipulations were excessive and absurd, particularly regarding the finances required. He pointed out that I am, in fact, the godfather to a niece of mine, and I send her money, which is accurate. Annually, I give her $100, and where she lives, that's quite a substantial sum. I mentioned there's a vast difference between $100 and potentially tens of thousands over an 18-year period. He essentially stated that he thought I was a good person, but it was now clear that I was self-centered. Subsequently, he blocked my number and email. His wife did the same. Keep in mind, his wife and mine used to converse almost daily. After he severed the relationship, I tore up the documents he'd given me, placed them in a bag, and put it in his mailbox, letting him know it was unfortunate he damaged a friendship over unreasonable requirements. I told him I forgive him anyway. Finally, I'll note that this couple together earns nearly $200,000 annually. My wife and I don't even make $35,000 annually. So, am I wrong for declining to be Jane's godfather? More information to come. I should also add that though I'm not aware of the wife's role in the contract, it's common for many women from her country to marry, let's say, wealthier men here. They often live very luxuriously and pour a lot of resources into their children. It seems like small presents aren't really their style either. Like, if you aren't carrying a designer purse, they'll look down on you. So maybe this whole massive spending habit was her idea. If somebody wants to blow all their cash, that's their call. However, I have zero desire to spend a fortune on a kid who isn't even related to me. Certainly not 25 grand. Now about these comments. Haha, wait, are you serious? Not they whole. It sounds like they believe you're an easy target and want to take advantage of you as a free cash machine. They're trying to get you to contribute at least $25,000 for some future college fund? Absolutely not. They expect you to simply cover their child's expenses while they're free to spend their own money on anything they want. That's spot on. The wife does buy an awful lot of costly items and can be pretty full of herself occasionally. Not they whole? Forking over $25,000 for a college fund that isn't for your own child is a colossal request. I have never seen a godparent contribute such a substantial sum at every single occasion, and they really shouldn't be shocked you backed out of the whole thing. Most people would not be able to manage that kind of financial obligation, and they're going to learn that the hard way. I feel bad that this whole mess damaged your friendship, and I sincerely hope they realize how selfish they're being. Yeah, normally, the parents or the kids sort out the whole college situation later on down the road. Not my problem. Oh my goodness, are they seriously doing this? This could signify a huge misunderstanding, but how could anyone be expected to put aside that much money for another person's child? This is an absurd request. It completely goes against everything that society generally accepts. Leaving that shredded document in his mailbox was a pretty mean thing to do, and it definitely didn't smooth things over. However, you're not being self-centered, you're being sensible. For them to financially burden your family like this, they have zero clue what's happening. There's no way I could be her godfather, not unless I wanted this new rule to control my entire life. I remember how my grandma always gave me those savings bonds for my future at every Christmas time. 25,000, though? No way. I do concede that shredding the document wasn't the smartest choice, particularly if they ever decide to say, "I'm sorry," and want to get back on friendly terms. Now onto the final story. Am I wrong for not wanting my dad's wife to call me by name or refer to me as her bonus kid during interviews? I just signed up on Reddit to get some thoughts on this. I'm a 29-year-old female, and my parents split up when I was 15. My dad remarried when I was 20, and his new wife, Laura, is a pretty well-known radio personality in our country. Sometimes Laura gets interviewed by news outlets, and she gets asked about her personal life, which would be totally normal and okay, except for how she constantly mentions me and my older siblings using our full names and calls us her bonus kids. The issue is, our last name is unusual. If you come across someone with that last name, they're absolutely connected to us. Basically, it's incredibly easy to find us, making this situation even more uncomfortable. I've gotten messages on Facebook from people asking if I know Laura or what it's like to live with her and other super personal questions. My sister has looked into changing her name to our grandmother's maiden name, just to get away from it all, and I'm thinking about using my fiancé's last name when we get married. Laura always acts like our mom, which is irritating and bothersome, and sometimes it even feels disrespectful, since our actual mom is very much a part of our lives. My sister and I have always said we were unhappy with it, but Laura never seems to hear us. After that first interview, we also told her we didn't want to be called her bonus kid, because we're grown-ups and don't like being treated like children. Even now, Laura just doesn't listen, and honestly, I'm at my breaking point. I recently moved to another country, and I've cut off contact with Laura completely. I still talk to my dad, and he hasn't been thrilled that I won't speak to his wife. I explained to him that if she would just stop bringing up our names during interviews and quit treating us like we're still little kids, I'd be happy to speak with her. It's perfectly fine that I don't want my personal life being made public, and honestly, I don't feel bad about it. However, does that make me a jerk for not wanting her to keep doing this or for not talking to her? Not a jerk. However, if I were in your shoes, I would have begun responding to all those fan questions after she refused to listen the first time. Frankly, I might have even launched a video channel and started calling her out and revealing details about her private life. This situation here. Yep, I'm familiar with Laura. You can find her at... Not a jerk. You did try to tell her and she didn't listen, so that's her problem. Your request is valid since it's having real-world effects and is impacting your private life. Not a jerk. But honestly, step-parents are in a no-win situation. If they don't treat their stepchildren the same way they treat their biological children, there's a problem. And if they do, it's also a problem. I bet she irritates her own kids, too. She's simply trying to spread the annoyance around, haha. You absolutely deserve privacy, although I find it difficult to imagine being completely shut out for wanting to show some love for my stepchildren, whom I'm probably proud of. I really wish she had married into a family where the kids could see how awesome she really is. I wouldn't want to act like a jerk about it, you know. The part of me that gets small-minded mean and wants to get even would really love to phone her during her radio broadcast and spill the beans to everyone who listens that she's disregarding your request to be left out of the conversation. I get the feeling you're not located in America, right? Is it something you could manage to send her a legal letter demanding she stop? Don't even give your name, Opie. Just phrase it like, "Hey, I'm wondering why you keep using the full names of your stepchildren when they've asked you to stop." There's a good chance she'll recognize your voice and realize who it is, but then you can just pretend you have no idea what's going on. Obviously, doing this would likely destroy the relationship, at least for now. However, wouldn't it be awesome to do? It's up to you to figure out if it's actually a worthwhile endeavor.